Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Dana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavajaka Ashtotartha Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavajaka Ashtotartha Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavindra Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, so we're on text 9 now, right? Okay. All right, so we didn't have a verse, so it's 8, 7, 9, I believe, right? Or 8, 8, 7, 9. Okay, but the chapter is 7. Okay. Narayanam namaskritya narang chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudire. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nasta prayesha badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord who is glorified in transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 21st day of April 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we're in Canto 8, Withdrawal of the Cosmic Creations, Chapter 7, Lord Śiva saves the universe by drinking poison. Text number 9. Tam uttitam viksha kulachalam punaha samudjita nirmatitum sorasaraha dadara prishtena salakshayojana pastarina dvipa ivaparo mahan tamuttitam viksha kulachalam punah samudjita nirmatitum sorasaraha sorasaraha tadara prishtena salakshayojana pastarina dvipa hivaparo mahan. Okay. We kick that H with a dot under it only on the second and fourth line, not after the first line. Tamuttitam viksha kolachalam punach chalam punach samudjita nirmatitum sorasaraha nirmatitum sorasaraha tadara prishtena salakshayojana pastarina dvipa hivaparo mahan. Tamuttitam viksha kolachalam punach tamuttitam viksha kolachalam punach samudjita nirmatitum sorasaraha ditani matitum sorasaraha tadara prishtena salakshayojana tadara prishtena pastarina dvipa hivaparo mahan. Good. Tamuttitam viksha kolachalam punach samudjita nirmatitum sorasaraha tadara prishtena salakshayojana pastarina dvipa hivaparo mahan. Tamuttitam viksha kolachalam punach samudjita nirmatitum sorasaraha tadara prishtena salakshayojana pastarina dvipa hivaparo mahan. Anyone online?
Tamuttitam viksha kolachalam punah
Tamuttitam viksha kolachalam punach
samudjata nirmatitum surasuraha
samudjita nirmatitum sorasaraha
dadara prishtena salakshayojana
tadhara prishtena salakshayojana
prashtarina dvipa iva paro mahan.
pastarina dvipa hivaparo mahan. Okay. Tam, that mountain. Uttitam, lifted. Vikshya, observing. Kulachalam, known as Mandara. Punaha, again. Samudjitaha, enlivened. Nirmatitum, to churn the ocean of milk. Soda asuraha, the demigods and the demons. Tadhara, carried. Prishtena, by the back. Saha, the Supreme Lord. Lakshayojana, 100,000 yojanas. 800,000 miles. Pastarina, extending. Dvipaha, a big island. Eva, like. Aparaha, other. Mahan, very big. Translation. When the demigods and the demons saw that Mandara Mountain had been lifted, they were enlivened and encouraged to begin churning again. The mountain rested on the back of the great tortoise, which extended for 800,000 miles like a large island. No purport? All right. I'm going to we'll just chant it once. Soda Sorendraya Bhujavirya Vepitam Paribramantam Giramanga Prishtataha Bimbrattaravartanamadi Kachapo Menengad Kanduyanam Aprameya Gatanduya. O king, when the demigods and demons, by the strength of their arms, rotated Mandara Mountain on the back of the extraordinary tortoise, the tortoise accepted the rolling of the mountain as a means of scratching his body, and thus he felt a pleasing sensation. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is always the unlimited, although the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his body as a tortoise held on his back the largest of mountains, Mandara Parvata, he did not feel any inconvenience. On the contrary, he apparently felt some itching, and thus the rotation of the mountain was certainly very pleasing. So I'm going to go on. Tata Sorana Vishadasurena Rupena Tesham Balaviryam Iriyan Udipayan Devaganangscha Vishnur Daivena Nagendramabodha Rupaha. Thereafter, Lord Vishnu entered the demons as the quality of passion, the demigods as the quality of goodness, and Vasuki, the snake, as the quality of ignorance to encourage them and increase their various types of strength and energy. Purport. Everyone in this material world is under the different modes of material nature. There were three different parties in the churning of Mandara Mountain: the demigods who were in the mode of goodness, the demons who were in the mode of passion, and the snake Vasuki who was in the mode of ignorance. Since they were all becoming tired, Vasuki so much so that he was almost going to die, Lord Vishnu, to encourage them to continue the work of the churning the ocean, entered into them according to their respective mode of nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. Text 12, I'll just read the English. Manifesting himself with thousands of hands, the Lord then appeared on the summit of Mandara Mountain, like another great mountain, and held Mandara Mountain with one hand. In the upper planetary systems, Lord Brahmā and Lord Śiva, along with Indra, king of heaven, and other demigods, offered prayers to the Lord and showered flowers upon him. Purport. To balance Mandara Mountain while it was being pulled from both sides, the Lord himself appeared on its summit like another great mountain. Lord Brahmā, Lord Śiva, and King Indra then expanded themselves and showered flowers on the Lord. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So this pastime of churning the ocean is expanding in all directions and causing great wonder in many different ways. The first wonder is that when you think about it, that they're using Mount Mandara as the churning rod. Mount Mandara is solid gold. It's huge. You can imagine how heavy it is, thousands and millions of tons. And these demigods and demons, they thought they'd carry it. But many of them got crushed and they got killed, and Narayan had to come and bring them back to life. And one hand, he didn't say he used one pinky, but we could imagine, well, okay, he used one hand. Okay, so he used one hand, and he lifted the whole mountain up and put it on the back of Garuda. Now, Garuda's strength is also amazing, obviously also infused with the energy of the Lord, so he could carry that weight into the ocean. And we have to understand that Krishna understood that the mountain was going to sink, but he knew what would happen, that he would be able to appear as another form and help the pastime. So they started. Now it doesn't say yet. I think we're going to come on that, where the demons who insisted on being in the front find themselves scorched and covered with soot or something, because this Vasuki is somewhat of a dragon as well, and he's got fire coming out of his mouth. But anyway, that be as it may, that'll come. So they're finally, Kurma's under there, right, getting scratched. And there's an amazing verse right at the end of the Bhagavatam, in the 12th canto, about how he's also, I think, sighing there or something. There's something to do with Kurma. It describes this pastime, and it describes how he's feeling comfortable by the scratching of his itch. So Kurma plays an important role there. And the demigods and the demons, they're all thinking of course, enjoying the nectar. The idea is that they couldn't have done it alone, so they needed to cooperate, right? So that's the nature of their truce. But they still maintain their enmity, their natures, you know. So it's going to be quite a scene there. At first the poison's coming out, and Shiva. Now how does he drink the whole ocean of poison? I mean, it's covering the whole ocean. Somehow he gets it into his one hand and drinks it. But that's all supernatural. And what's the effect? You know the effect? Turns his neck blue. So he's no Nilakanta. That's the whole effect. Quite amazing. And Lakshmi will come out, the moon will come out, Airavata will come out, and then finally Dhanvantari appears with a pitcher of nectar, I think symbolic of all the nectar. And then comes the tricking of the demons so that they don't get any nectar, except for one demon, Rahu, gets a little bit of nectar. He sat in amongst the demigods and fooled them, and he gave him some nectar. Then he noticed, and he cut off his head, but his head had become immortal, so he floats off into the atmosphere. So, and then Mohini Murti, you know, that's another aspect of this. She comes, that's Krishna, who's already fabulously beautiful. He becomes as this woman, and of course he bewilders the demigods. You know, she's serving out, and so she starts serving out to the demigods, but the demons are just bewildered by her, and they don't even notice. So there's all kinds of elements to this wonderful pastime. But one of the things that we can relish from this is that there's no limit to what the Krishna can do in order to enjoy these pastimes. I mean, there's no boundary that, oh, you can't do this. You can't say that about Krishna. He can do anything. So he's obviously enjoying himself in arranging this pastime. And there's all kinds of lessons there. Now, this part here was interesting, how Krishna, he strengthened their different modes of nature so that they would be enthused to continue in the service. The demigods in the mode of goodness, and the devotees are in the mode of goodness, and Vasuki is in the mode of ignorance, and the demons in the mode of passion. So how do you adjust all that so everyone can cooperate and churn? So they simply strengthened them, and they were comfortable in their modes, and it all worked out. And it's true, Vasuki is that snake that Shiva wears. Must have expanded and elongated himself, you know. So all of these things are happening. And how does that apply to us? I mean, we're right near the ocean. Who knows? Maybe it'll happen again. But the idea is that Krishna has a plan. You know, he's aware of all these things, and the demigods will eventually get the nectar. They'll be reinstated, I think, in their homes. The demons will be very depressed because they don't get any nectar, and they were bewildered and tricked. But that's the nature of the Lord's pastimes, is that they're unexpected. You never know what's going to happen. But understanding that his position as the Supreme Lord, that's what it means to be absolute. You can absolutely do anything, you see. And that gives us confidence that even in our condition with this Kali Yuga accelerating in the degradation and so much destruction going on, and earthquake may come, may come worse, you know. In other words, so we're also not secure. You can never think that you'll be secure in any material position. But the only security is to increase our Krishna consciousness, so that at every moment we're Krishna conscious and relishing our relationship with Krishna, and trying to do our best to spread the mission and to maintain all the responsibilities we've been given for this yatra, and continue to hear and chant and study the Bhagavatam, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Krishna book. Krishna book is quite a treasure. I'm reading every day. I'm going round and round, you know. And each pastime is ever fresh. It never gets stale, just like the Hare Krishna mantra. You know, if you're really hearing it and melting it, it's like you never want to stop. There's what is that? beautiful verses by Sanatana Goswami to begin his Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And the one I especially remember is Jayati Jayati Namananda Rupam Murare Vidamita Nija Dharma Dhyana Pujari Yatnam Katamapi Sakadatam Muktidam Praninam Yat Padamamamitam Ekam Jivanam Bhushanam. You know that one? The one thing that since my my job as an editor is ongoing, I have a kind of an eternal regret, because they gave me that book. They, meaning Jayadvaita Swami and Gopi Pranadana, gave it to me for proofreading and any correction I would find. But I failed to find the error in the translation of that verse. Vidamita is a form of the word to cause. Anyway, it's in the causal. What the way he translates is that if one gives up all these worship of the demigods and all these other things and just chants Hare Krishna, then you'll get the full mercy of the Lord, of the name or something. But really, what it means is that the name itself will cause you to give up these other things, and that it's translated like that in a purport in the Anjalila. But I didn't dawn on me. And so it got printed, Gopi passed away, and we haven't corrected it yet. But what it means is, all glories to the holy name of Murari. Jayati Jayati Namananda, Jayati Jayati Namananda Rupam Murari, which is the very form of Ananda. Namananda Rupam, you see? In other words, just the name itself is ultimate bliss if one can learn to relish it that way. Vidamita Nija Dharma, and it causes you to give up all of your mundane duties in Varnashram, right, and worship of the devas or something like that. Namana Rupam, Vidamita Nija Dharma, Dhyana Rupadi Yatnam. The great efforts of the meditation and all of these Varnashram duties and things. And so if you really take shelter of the holy name, then you want to renounce all that. Katamapi Sakadatam, even chanted even once with purity. Katamapi Sakadatam Muktidam Praninam Yat. It liberates any soul, any soul who does it. Katamapi Sakadatam Muktidam Praninam Padamam Amritam Ekam. It is my sole and supreme nectar. Padamam Amritam Ekam. Jivanam Bhushanam, my very life and my only ornament. Do you have the translation there? Is this more or less? Okay, yeah, it's hard to find. So this is it's wonderful to contemplate that Sanatana Goswami is actually experiencing the holy name in this way. He really feels that, and he's overwhelmed with urge to express it and to share his realization. And Rupa Goswami also, in his Stavamala, the last poem is 8 verses about the holy name, glorification. And it has no Palashuti. You know what the Palashuti is, the verse at the end? Indicating that he collected these verses, he didn't write it as an ashtaka, and usually you can tell because each verse has a different meter, And there's so many wonderful verses in there. The last verse, this is the source of the name of this devotee who's the son of Prahlada Priya, who's a wonderful kirtaniya. He's a short, wonderful devotee. Narada vino jivana sadorma niryasa maruri pura Tvam Krishna nama kamam spodame rasane rasena sada. It's a prayer, like there's another verse like this too. Prayer to the holy name for giving more nectar. So he says, "Oh, holy name, you're the inspiration for the Vina of Narada Muni. Narada Vino Jivana, the life and soul. Narada Vino Jivana Sudormi Niryasa Maruri Pura. You're a flood of the sweetest essence of nectar, a river of nectar. Sudormi, full of waves of sweetness. Sudormi Niryasa Maruri Pura, very thick. Tvam Krishna Namas Kamam. Now the word kamam means if you please. It doesn't have anything to do with lust, Tvam Krishna, oh holy name, if you please, please. Krishna Namakam, Spudame Rasane Rasena Sada. Always appear on my tongue with great relish. Let I always have this great taste for you as I chant. I'm giving you that. And there's another one in there where he gives a list of names. This is not uncommon, Agadamana Yashoda Nandano Nandasunu. Kamalanayana Gopi Chandra Vrindavanendra Pandita Kaduna Krishna Vityaneka Swarupe Tvai Mamanataduchai Vardatam Namadeha. The same idea, he's asking for more and more taste. So he's giving samples. Agadamana, the chastiser killer of the Agasura demon. Agadamana Yashoda Nandano Nandasunu, beloved son of Yashoda Nanda. Kamalanayana, you of the lotus eyes. Kamalanayana Gopi Chandra, the moon that causes the chakora birds of the gopi's eyes to blossom. Gopi Chandra, Vrindavan Indra, the prince of Vrindavan. Pranata Karuna, I love this one. This is the name. I was thinking some mother, they figure out the names for their children. They can put this. Pranata Karuna, you who are most merciful to the surrendered souls. Pranata Karuna, Krishna, and of course Krishna. Ityaneka Surupe, you have unlimited numbers of names. Tvai mama naturuchai vardatam namadeha. Please increase my attraction for you at every moment. You can pray like that. So we've been given this great treasure. Srila Prabhupada gave us, the wonderful, wonderful jewels of his books, big and small and shastric, from beginning to end. And he wanted other books translated. He said in a letter, because when we finished the Bhagavatam in Miami in 1987, I think it was, we had a little meeting. We invited some other members of the BBT trustees, and well, what are we going to do next? This is and we found some letters, or actually the passage in the Chaitanya Charitamrita in the Adi Leela, where Prabhupada says in the purport, I don't know if he's quoting one of the acharyas, one of the other acharyas, about the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, that this book is important to read and to understand Krishna. So that was the first, and that's the one that Jayawada Maharaj and Gopi Paranadhana Prabhu so wonderfully, I think. Keshava Bharati Maharaj was also involved in that one. But at that meeting, we also decided to produce the books that Prabhupada began. Two, Mukunda Mala Stotra and the Narada Bhakti Sutra. Now, Narada Bhakti Sutra is not read so much by devotees, but and of course it's sutras. It's and Prabhupada did about, I think, 10 or 12 of the verses. He began it. It was asked. It's coming out of 26th Avenue, because I used to live near there, and there was this bookstore, a spiritual New Age bookstore or something that was selling some of it, and some of the boys may have picked this up there. And it was the Narada Bhakti Sutra, and Satsvarupa Maharaj wrote to Prabhupada, "Is it all right if we read the Narada Bhakti Sutra?" And Prabhupada said, "Oh yes, it's very authorized." And so he asked him to translate it, and Prabhupada started translating it. He was in LA, I believe, or San Francisco at the time. And then Prabhupada wrote to Satsvarupa and said, "Well, I've stopped the Narada Bhakti Sutra because he's working on the TLC, which he thought was of utmost importance. And he found that the same basic philosophy and everything was there, so he didn't want to divert his attention. But since he did start it, he approved it, then that was the other book. So those two books were the first books published after the Bhagavatam. And just wonderful, the Mukundamala Stotra. Actually, that was printed during Bhaktisiddhanta's time, I think, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur published it also. And so I think this is why Prabhupada, I don't know if there was no English, but so he wanted to do it in English, and he started. And famously, Prabhupada would chant that verse. I think this was after he had his stroke, and he was recovering, because he felt he almost died. Krishna tvadiya padapangaja panjadantam adjaiva me vishati manasa radahangsa prana prayana kavaye, how's it go? Samaye kapavata pittaya kanta varodana vadho smaranam kutaste. So, oh Krishna tvadiya padapangaja panjadantam, please let the swan of my mind be entangled in the tendrils of the lotus of your feet. Prana prayana samaya. After all, at the time of death, I may choke up, and I won't be able to chant your name. My voice will be choked up. So, in other words, let me die now. This is what the gist of the story is. And then there's another one. We know the famous verse Lord Chaitanya wrote. How's it go? Naham vipro, nachadanupati, napi vaishyo, nashudro. Naham varni nachagrihapatir no vanasto yatirva. Kintu projan nikalapadamanan purnam vitabdir gopi bhartu padakamalayo dasa dasa dasa. Very famous. When Prabhupada refers to the verse, he usually doesn't chant the whole thing, but he'll say dasa 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 dasa. And that's the verse in Mukundamala where he says Britya Britya Parichadika Britya 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 Britya. So Lord Chaitanya is giving, giving us this. Who are we? We have to understand who am I? Lord Chaitanya, when he started this instruction to Sanatana Goswami approached him with the straw in his mouth, surrendering, and he pleaded, please instruct me. Kayami, who am I? Why am I suffering if I don't know these things? People say I'm such a learned scholar, and I believe, but I don't know anything. So Lord Chaitanya is answering, well, who are we? Who is he identified with? So first he gives all these things that he's not, which is practically everyone in society. I'm not a Brahmin. I'm not a Kshatriya. I'm not a Shudra, Vaishya or Shudra. Aham Vipro Nachanarapatiya. That's a Chaitan Kshatriya. Not be Vaishyo, na Shudro. Naham Varni. A Varni, what is it? Varni is Brahmachari? I think a Brahmachari. Yeah, Naham Varni, Nacha Grihapatir, Grahasta, No Vanasto, Vanaprastha, Yatirva, the Yati, those who strive. Yati is a kind of a nickname for sannyasis. So now what is he? That's what he's not. Kintu prodyan nikadapadamana purna mitam der gopi bhartu patakamalayo dasa dasa. So I am simply a servant of the lotus feet of Krishna, the master of the gopis, right? Kintu prodyan nikalapadamana, who is the personification of all bliss and is shining in like the things. Kintu prodyan nikalapadamana purna bidabde, like the ocean of Ananda, which is Krishna. I'm the servant of the servant of the servant of the lotus feet of Krishna, the master of the gopis, and all these other things. So that mood is kind of expansion on the Trinadapisuni Chena. If you want to really advance, we have to have that mood all the time that we're very insignificant, that we're helpless, that we're more insignificant. And therefore, we need Krishna's mercy more than anyone else, and we feel that, oh, please, shower my mercy upon. So then, and all these pastimes will become even so much more relishable. How Krishna would take that form of a turtle. I have to say turtle, because actually tortoise is supposed to be on the land. I looked it up. Anyway, we're not going to change the books. Don't worry, I'm not changing the books. Probably the famous. But we don't have to pronounce it tortoise. We can pronounce it tortoise. So this is interesting. He entered the demons as the quality of passion. The demigods is the quality of goodness, and Vasagi is the quality of ignorance. So basically, he's increasing their ability to do their services by strengthening the quality that's already in. So there's no confusion, and they if the demons get into the quality of goodness, they won't know what to do. They'll just sit there. But that's the quality that the demigods are naturally in. And this Vasuki, who's you'd say, well, my God, did it hurt? You get pulling this and rubbing on the mountain. He's also sacrificing here, but he has an important role. All right, any questions, comments, realizations as we read this wonderful pastime? All right, let's read one more verse.
I have one if no one else there does. Just a quick one.
Go ahead, Maitreya.
So, thank you. It's just you're really good at helping the demigods churn and produce wonders. You mentioned the books as treasures given by Srila Prabhupada, and so many books are among them. And I remember the first time I actually held one. I was 12 years old. My mother had gotten one at the airport, I guess. I saw it high up on the bookshelf. Uh-huh. And I got it down from the shelf, and as I looked at it and began turning the pages, I became more and more amazed that, there's the Sanskrit, the Devanagari, and then it's iterated and the word for word. And as I began looking more and more, when I got to the back and saw there's a whole little lesson on Devanagari and the pronunciation, my hair was literally standing on end. And then I realized this is she got the first canto, part 3. And my mind began racing. That means there's more cantos, there's more parts, there's a whole library of these amazing books.
Yeah.
And then as you look at it, you realize they appeal. There's the literary appeal, there's philosophy, theology, linguistics, language, and then there's the whole Leela aspect, which just opens it up to an entirely new universe.
Yeah.
And also, I wanted to commiserate with those who pronounce tortoise as tortoise, because English is a crazy language,
Yes.
and people who come from more sane languages where the letters and vowels behave themselves, it's really a conundrum too.
Yeah, thank you. There's a quote from Prabhupada. One time he was, kind of giving his opinion about the craziness of the English language, because Sanskrit is very strict. So, and he gave the example of but and put. Why in heaven's name should they be, should the UT sound different than the put from the but, you see? But anyway, that's the way it is. So I'm gonna share with you a little story about my discovery of the books. This happened during the big marathon in LA in '75. I had the unbelievable good fortune to be able to participate in that. And in working on, and I came in the middle, and so they already were finished with the Madhya Lila and everything, and the Adi Lila, which we had already published. Actually, those 3 books were done. But the Anja Lila, so I'd say there I am working on 3 chapters of the Anja Lila, which is the highest pinnacle of Lord Chaitanya's ecstasy and everything. And I had learned from Santosh Babu, one of the main Sanskritists at that time, when we were still in Brooklyn before we left, the technique of how to figure out the meter, because I have almost a genetic thing with the meter, because my father was a drummer and I was like that. So the meter was always very fascinating for me for the Sanskrit, which isn't there in the Bengali. Bengali is straightforward. So he was showing me. He took me into his office. And he showed me various verses from Anjalila, chapter 1, where Rupa Goswami comes down and to be with Lord Chaitanya. And they ask him, what kind of book are you writing? He's very shy. So I think they give it, it's Vidagdha Madhava, the play. And Srup Damodar starts reading some of the verses. And he's amazed. And then after a few verses, he says, this isn't Sanskrit poetry. This is just a flood of total nectar here, And so there's these verses, and then he showed me how to pronounce some of them. And much later, in the 90s, after I had already gone to Miami and worked on the Bhagavatam and came back to LA, I would visit there. I was here, and I would spend a lot of time in LA. We didn't have the internet, so I had to spend a month at a time there when we were doing a book. And I was there when Sura conceived that idea of the temple bhajan band. And he knew that I was into the shlokas and everything, and so he invited me to come, and I was there for the first session, so I was part of that. So whenever later as years went by, he would put out various CDs, of his kirtans, and he wanted me to be on there with one of my ashtakas, the things that, So let's see, what was I going to say? Now, this is a senior moment. Oh, yeah. So I had done a few of the prayers, and then I thought, well, I have to come up with something new. So I said, okay, I'm going to do a series of verses that are in the meter that Prabhupada revealed was in the Shikarini meter. There's a bunch of verses. I don't know if you recognize, they're from quoted about Lord Chaitanya. This is one of my favorites I memorized. Smita loka shoka mahadajitakatam yasya padido. Gidang tu prarambaka kushala pataling pallabahiti. Padalambaka kangva paniyati nahi premandavaham sadevas chaitanya kritadatatadang kripayatu. When will Lord Chaitanya show us his great mercy? And this smita loka shokam. Just his smiling glance alone immediately dries up all of the lamentation in the universe. Shokam hadajit jagatam, to the universe. Yes, his words, Gidang tu praramba kushalapataling, cause the creeper of devotion to sprout and flourish in the heart. Girang tu pradam kushala pataling palavate. Padalam bakakangva panayati nahi premadavaha. And then the last, and how, if one takes shelter of his lotus feet, how could he possibly not get prema? You know, when will that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu show us his great mercy? Okay. So, then in my course of studying, you know, I think most of these are from that Anjali chapter 1, but there were 5 or 6 verses in that meter, and I said, okay, I'll make a recording of those, and that'll be my contribution for this CD. And we didn't recite the English to him. That was in a separate document you could get online, you know. But I had to come up with a chorus line, because there was going to be a chorus. I can send you this recording. So it's got to be fitting into the same meter. So I came up with this line: Namaste Shri Radhe, Namaste Shri Sham. If you check it out, that has the same number of beats, you know. So that's what we did, and I did, like, one of them is describing Radharani. You know, it's in there, the Anjali chapter 1. Baladakshna Lakshmi Kabalayati Navyam Kabalayam Mukolasak Pulam Kamalavalamulangiyaticha Vasam Krishta Mashta Padmapinayat Yanga Kuduchi Vichitrang Radhaya Kimipikaladupam Vilasati. Namaste Shri Radhe, Namaste Shri Sham. So anyway, I made the recording, and making the recording means being in LA and finding Uttama Shloka Prabhu, the original Uttama Shloka from Chicago, who by that time had a business going out of his home, where he had a professional studio set up there, and he was doing recording, and he would do these recordings for free, I think, for Sura. So I went there, and there was another bunch of devotees, and they would come in on the chorus and everything. So the CD went out, and that was the last one Sura asked me to make, because it was so popular. Devotees were burning that track off it, you know. And then Vyasaki picked up on that one line. He started integrating it into kirtans. You can go on YouTube and you can hear it. Namaste Shri Radhe, Namaste Shri Sham. So what is this? And then I got in trouble. The Gunagari Swami was still on the planet, and he chastised me. He said, "What are you doing? Concocting a song, you know, your own Sanskrit." Prabhupada didn't like that, you know. So I didn't do that, you know. I just put it into the poem, you know. So there's one set I got on the internet, and I forget where they are in Europe somewhere. They have a band, they're singing it. And they said, "Oh, Rupa Goswami wrote this song in this wonderful meter," as if he had put it all together that way. But that's the legacy Prabhupada gave us, you know, to give to those things. And Krishna Krata and others have translated so many things in the same mood. So there's no shortage. We just have to take advantage of it. Take advantage of Prabhupada's books and all the addendas to Prabhupada's books, and we can stay absorbed in Krishna consciousness 24 hours a day. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Uh-oh. Go ahead, Vijay. If you need to leave, you can all leave. I'll just...
Yes, Dravida Prabhu, can you read again the first sentence of the purport?
Okay, I better start recording this again, because this is going to be very important. Okay, the first sentence of the purport. Why is it always the first sentence or the last sentence? It's amazing. And
It's easy.
now, which purport is that? Do you know the number of the verse?
10.
Huh?
To text 10.
10. Okay, thank you. Sorry, Vijay, I don't mean to make fun of you. You're one of our most valuable students here. Okay. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is always the unlimited, period. That one? That's text 10?
Yes, that one, Dravida Prabhu.
Okay.
Based on this sentence, my question would be, is it possible for the Supreme Personality of Godhead to measure how unlimited he is?
Well, the very word unlimited kind of precludes any measurement, right? Now, even Prabhupada said that, you know, that Krishna is so great, and he's always getting greater, that even he doesn't know how great he is, because as soon as he knows, then it's increased. So there's that whole kind of inconceivability of Krishna, that he's ever increasing in beauty and in power and in everything. So there's even he can't, measure it. Or if he's measured it, then by the time he publishes that, then it's out of date and it's even greater. So unlimited kind of is a word that means it's beyond our conception. And it's ever increasing. Just like this pastime. It's so, inconceivable. The demigods are carrying this mountain made of gold, and then they get crushed, and and then Narayan comes, brings them back to life, takes the mountain with his one hand, and easily puts it on the back of Garuda, and Garuda is able to carry it, into the. The whole thing is just beyond our understanding. So it's kind of a test of faith. Devotees, been around a while. They'll believe it, but outsiders, maybe that's why it's in Canto 8, Yeah, there's so many things that are inconceivable about Krishna and astounding. And one of them is this ever-increasing aspect, his pastimes, his love for the devotees, his beauty, all these things are ever-increasing and unlimited and astounding. And by contrast, you see the pale reflection of our material shadows and reflections. It's so once you realize that, if you really believe in it, then it's a very strong impetus to become detached from all these things and not be so absorbed in the pale, pathetic pleasures that the material energy offers us, which we are amazed at only because we completely forget Krishna. But if we remember Krishna and his pastimes and his qualities and his names and his relationships, that's what's really fulfilling. And we can, and wonderful that he's inviting us to take part. We're not alien. We're not just observers. We're participants. We're meant to be participants. So step by step, if we take, we revive our identity of servitorship. You see? Never use servitude. I think I mentioned this. It means slavery. It's not the word, It seemed to be it has serve in there, but it's just one of these pitfalls of the English language. It seems to be working all right, but it's not. So we're going after all the servitudes in Prabhupada's books. And since he gave us servitorship, it's 1 or 2 syllables more, but that's all. Is that okay, Maitreya? I'm sorry, was it Vijay?
Yes, Prabhu, that is okay. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Hare Krishna.
Haribo.
Yeah, it's interesting that the devotees and the lovers of Krishna aren't so interested in measuring.
They're what?
When you love someone, you're not so interested in measuring and checking and like that. And the poor demons and those who are in ignorance are so interested in, well, if God is so great, if you say he's unlimited, but then how can he measure himself? They're trying to catch God in some sort of linguistic trap.
Yeah.
Missing the whole point. You can learn to love him, and then he's not concerned with that, and neither are the devotees. We just
exactly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maitreya. Haribo.